The fluorescent lights of the accounting department office hummed with the slow, desperate exhaustion of a Friday afternoon. Everyone was rushing to finalize reports, but my mind was utterly elsewhere. Specifically, about 30 floors above me, in the corner office of Cassian Sterling. Cassian, CEO of Sterling Corp., was everything I wasn't. Sharp, powerful, and an alpha whose presence was so dominating it could make the air vibrate. Tal Vesper was just an Omega assistant in the finance annex. I worked for Mr. Lin, a perfectly nice beta manager, and I only ever saw Cassian when he strode through the lower floors. A brief, intimidating vision of power and expensive cologne. And, embarrassingly, I was completely, hopelessly in love with him. I knew it was ridiculous. We had never spoken. He didn't even know my name. But over the past few months, the casual, distant crush had blossomed into a full-blown, dramatic fantasy. He was the only alpha who sent a clean, cold silver musk ever managed to completely soothe the constant, low-level anxiety my unbonded Omega status carried. I was supposed to be finalizing the quarterly revenue summary for Mr. Lin to submit to the executive floor, but I kept glancing at the open Word document on my personal desktop, hidden behind the spreadsheets. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a letter. I'd written it last night, fueled by a bottle of cheap wine and a particularly devastating daydream where Cassian noticed me in the elevator and suddenly decided I was his destined mate. The letter was intense. My dearest Cassian, you are the star I navigate by in this cold corporate sea. I see the burden of your alpha strength and wish only to shelter you in my quiet Omega heart. Your scent, that exquisite silver musk, is the only fragrance I ever wish to breathe again. I know this is foolish, but when I see your silhouette against the skyline, I feel a bond that transcends logic. Please know that deep in the finance annex, there is an Omega whose soul aches for your attention. I reread the last line, cringing hard enough to shake my monitor. It was pure, unadulterated melodrama, but reading it was a necessary catharsis. I quickly clicked Save and named the file Do Not Open Rant. My heart rate finally slowed. I closed the document, feeling lighter. Time to focus on the actual report. I double-checked the quarterly revenue summary, a dense PDF I was responsible for ensuring reached the CEO's desk before 5 p.m. Tal, is that ready? Mr. Lin called from his office. It needs to go into the official submission folder now. Cassian Sterling doesn't tolerate delays. Ready, Mr. Lin, I said, rushing to the networked submission folder. My hands were flying across the keyboard, attaching the final PDF to the submission email template and clicking Send. Relief washed over me. The report was done, and I had successfully navigated another week. I leaned back in my chair, stretching my shoulders, and then decided to spend a quick 5 minutes deleting the embarrassing fantasy letter. I clicked open my personal files, searching for Do Not Open Rant. My eyes scanned the list, and my blood ran cold. Under the revenue summary PDF, sitting right beside it in the sent folder, was the name of the attachment I had actually sent. My heart stopped, then restarted with a sickening, violent lurch. I hadn't saved the letter to my personal drive. I had accidentally saved it to the networked attachments folder and sent it, along with the required corporate PDF, directly to the executive secretary, who forwarded all incoming executive memos directly to Cassian Sterling's tablet. My head spun. He wouldn't just see the file name. He would see the entire attachment list. He would see my dramatic, insane, Omega-driven declaration of undying love. Panic choked me. Cassian Sterling, the man who probably communicated only through stern memos and alpha growls, would read about his corporate sea and his exquisite silver musk. I would be a laughingstock. I would be fired. I might be forcibly relocated to the mailroom in a different city. I scrambled, trying to recall the message. Could I recall the email? Too late. It was already marked, delivered. A cold sweat broke out on my neck, instantly triggering my distressed vanilla scent. My phone rang, not my personal phone, but the secure office line that only received calls from Mr. Lin or the executive floor. I snatched it up, my hand shaking violently. Hello, Tal speaking. The voice on the other end was clipped, feminine, and terrifyingly calm. Mr. Vesper, this is Ms. Davies. Mr. Sterling's executive secretary. Mr. Sterling would like to see you in his office immediately. I swallowed, tasting the metallic fear on my tongue. Did he say why? Then the secretary's voice, colder still. He said to tell you he has received the full report. You are to proceed to the 30th floor, office 3001. Now. The phone clicked dead. I sank back into my chair, my entire body trembling. The powerful Alpha CEO, who I only dreamed of, had just read the evidence of my ridiculous, secret fantasy. The walk to the 30th floor felt like walking toward my execution. The executive floor was silent, carpeted, and terrifying. Everything whispered of power and old money, from the dark mahogany walls to the original abstract paintings that probably cost more than my yearly salary. I felt impossibly small as I dragged my anxious Omega scent, sharp vanilla and sheer panic, across the polished floor toward office 3001. Ms. Davies didn't bother looking up when I approached. She simply pointed a manicured nail toward the massive, soundproof double doors. He's waiting. My stomach twisted violently. Cassian Sterling scent already lingered in the air. Cold silver musk, crisp and precise. A fragrance that usually comforted me from afar, but now it sat heavy and suffocating on my tongue. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The office was enormous, one entire wall made of glass overlooking the glittering city. But all I could see was him. Cassian Sterling, Alpha CEO of Sterling Corp., sat behind his immaculate obsidian desk. No yelling, no pacing, he was perfectly still, which was infinitely worse. The only item on his desk besides his laptop was a single printed sheet of paper. The final page of my letter. He didn't greet me. He didn't offer me a chair. He simply lifted his gaze, sharp and metallic like a blade catching light. "Mr. Vesper," he said, voice low and resonant. Deeper, more commanding than anything I'd imagined from the company broadcasts. "Close the door and stand there." The subtle alpha command in his tone shot straight through me. I obeyed instantly, hating how easy it was for my body to submit. Cassian picked up the paper between two fingers, as if it were mildly offensive. "I completed reviewing the quarterly revenue summary," he said, voice clipped and professional. "Adequate work, Mr. Vesper. Slightly below projection, but acceptable." The praise was so minimal it almost stung more than criticism. Then his eyes lowered to the letter. "However," he continued, "I received another document, this one titled, 'Do Not Open Rant.' A title you perhaps should have followed yourself before including it in an official submission folder." He read aloud, deadpan, emotionless. The most humiliating line I'd ever written. "Your scent, that exquisite silver musk, is the only fragrance I ever wish to breathe again." My face burned. I tasted static. My Omega scent spiked into an embarrassing burst of distressed sweetness. "Sir, I'm so sorry," I blurted, wringing my hands. "It was personal. A stupid mistake. I saved it in the wrong." He cut me off with a flick of his hand. "A drunken mistake, Mr. Vesper? Or a calculated attempt to gain my attention using inappropriate emotional leverage?" "No, sir. Never," I said quickly. "I would never manipulate you like that. I respect you, your position, too much." Cassian set the paper down, tapping it once. "This letter presents a significant complication. I do not tolerate workplace romantic entanglements. They are messy, inefficient." He leaned forward, the full force of his alpha gaze pinning me where I stood. "I was preparing to appoint a new personal assistant next quarter. Someone reliable, discreet, someone without." His eyes flicked over me. Emotional bias. The implication sliced directly into my chest. Fired. I was about to lose the only stability I had. "Please, Mr. Sterling," I whispered, voice cracking. "I can be discreet. I can be professional. I swear this will never happen again. Please give me another chance." Tears were threatening, burning behind my eyes, but I forced myself not to break. Cassian watched me in silence, assessing, calculating, and then something shifted in his expression. A softening, but not the kind that offered comfort. A strategist had just discovered a new tool. He picked up a pen and tapped it against his chin. Perhaps, he said slowly, there is an alternative. I blinked, confused. An alternative, sir? You clearly find me attractive, Mr. Vesper. Intensely so. You fantasize about me. The bluntness made my face flush violently. Normally, this would be a liability. But liabilities can be repurposed. He leaned back, silver eyes glinting with cool intent. I have a problem, Mr. Vesper. A highly public, social one. I require an Omega partner immediately. Someone who can convincingly act devoted, compliant, and thoroughly attached. My pulse jolted. And you, he continued, desperately need to keep your job. The smile he gave me was slow, calculated, predatory. I need a temporary partner to accompany me to events. Someone who will behave as though he is my mate. A beard. His voice dipped to a dangerously soft register. And you, Mr. Vesper, owe me your silence and your participation. The offer hung in the air. A lifeline wrapped in a coil of highly dangerous, transactional rope. The prospect of being Cassian Sterling's fake partner was humiliating. Yet the alternative was unemployment and total ruin. A beard, I repeated faintly. You want me to pretend we are in a relationship. A convincing one, Cassian confirmed, his eyes sharp. You wrote the script yourself, Mr. Vesper. You seem deeply devoted. Now, prove your discretion and loyalty by turning that ridiculous devotion into performance. I gripped the edge of my suit jacket. This was terrifying, but the thought of smelling his exquisite silver musk up close, of being near him, was already activating the foolish Omega part of my brain. I swallowed my pride. And if I agree, I keep my job? I asked. You keep your job, and you will be compensated for your acting services, Cassian said, dismissing the love aspect entirely. You will also be discreetly promoted to the position of my new personal assistant. A believable reason for your constant proximity. He picked up a sleek black folder from a hidden compartment in the desk. This was a serious, alpha-level business proposal. I knew I had no choice. I agree, Mr. Sterling. Cassian gave a tight, satisfied nod. Good. Now we establish the terms that guarantee my protection. Cassian slid the black folder across the desk. It landed with a soft, authoritative thud. The first requirement of this arrangement is guaranteed silence, Cassian stated, his voice devoid of negotiation. I am giving you access to my private life, which is far more sensitive than any corporate report. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement, Mr. Vesper, and the terms are non-negotiable. I opened the folder. The document inside was thick, written in dense legal language, and the penalty clause was frighteningly clear. If I ever revealed the true nature of our contract or any detail of his personal life, I would forfeit not only my job but also a sum that would put me in debt for the rest of my life. This is very harsh, sir, I murmured, my Omega anxiety spiking again. It is necessary, Cassian countered. You have proven that you confuse reality with fantasy. This NDA is your insurance against making another costly mistake. It guarantees your professionalism, Tell. He used my first name for the first time, not as a sign of affection, but as a deliberate reminder of the power imbalance. My private life is not yours to gossip about, and I will not risk my professional standing for a romantic whim, he finished. I scanned the document one last time, my stomach twisting. I had dreamed of a connection with this man. Instead, I was signing a legal document that ensured our relationship would be the furthest thing from real. I picked up the pen and, with a shaky hand, signed my name, Tal Vesper, on the signature line. Excellent, Cassian said, taking the folder back. He slipped the original into a drawer and pulled out a single, smaller sheet of paper, a short addendum. The NDA covers your silence. The addendum covers your behavior, he explained. We are starting this arrangement tonight. I have a dinner reception that requires a convincing, devoted Omega partner. Behavioral terms. He began to read the terms, ticking them off on his fingers. 1. You will appear devoted and attentive at all public functions. This means maintaining physical proximity, eye contact, and reacting appropriately to any alpha gesture I initiate. 2. You will answer only to me. You are officially promoted to my personal assistant, effective Monday. You answer only to me, you report only to me, and you will prioritize my schedule above all others. 3. To ensure the bond is believable in corporate circles, where scent is everything, we must establish a clear scent presence. I stiffened at the third point. This was it. The alpha demand. How do you mean, sir? I asked, bracing myself. Cassian leaned forward, his silver eyes completely professional. Yet his proximity made my Omega instincts stir violently. His silver musk was stronger now, a magnetic, overwhelming force. We are not truly mated, Tal, and I will not force a claim. However, a public alpha must present a claimed Omega to signal stability and commitment, he explained clinically. Therefore, before we leave for the reception, I will give you a temporary scent mark. He clarified immediately, sensing my tension. This is strictly a scent application, not a bonding mark. It's for political theater. My scent will be applied to your clothing and your hair, just enough to communicate to others that you are under my immediate protection and not available. Do you consent to this necessary action? The word protection resonated deep within my Omega instincts, a dangerous lure. It was a terrifying concept, yet thrillingly intimate. If his scent could make me feel this safe from afar, what would a temporary claim feel like? My breath hitched. I consent, Mr. Sterling. A flicker of something, not warmth, but perhaps satisfaction, crossed his features. He stood up, towering over the desk. Good. This is purely professional, Tal. Do not confuse it for anything else. He walked around the desk, stopping directly in front of me. I was forced to look up at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. His powerful alpha physique radiated heat and dominance. He reached out, his hand incredibly warm as he cupped the back of my neck, tilting my head slightly to expose the sensitive skin below my ear. My eyes instinctively fluttered shut, a rush of nervous anticipation flooding me. He didn't touch my skin, but he brought his face close to the collar of my shirt. Then he exhaled a slow, controlled breath, saturating the air around my scent gland with a heavy, potent dose of his silver musk and cold mint. The effect was instantaneous and stunning. A wave of profound calm washed over me, smothering my anxiety and silencing the frantic rush of fear. My Omega instincts registered the powerful, commanding alpha scent, and responded with an instinctive, immediate submission and relief. My own stressed vanilla scent vanished, replaced entirely by the cool, reassuring power of Cassian's scent. I leaned into his hand, a soft, involuntary sound escaping my throat. For the first time all week, I felt utterly, undeniably safe. He pulled back, his hand lingering for a moment, his silver eyes searching my face. Stay with me, he commanded softly, the alpha inflection undeniable. We leave in 20 minutes. Ms. Davies will provide you with the address and a change of clothes. You look too much like an accountant right now. He released me and walked away, already reviewing files on his tablet. The intimate, overwhelming moment was over, replaced by cold professionalism. I stood there, still trembling, but now the trembling was a mix of residual alpha command and the exhilarating knowledge that I was wearing the scent of Cassian Sterling. I was no longer just an assistant. I was his beard, and I smelled like his property. Ms. Davies was exactly as efficient as expected. 20 minutes was all I had before being escorted out of the CEO's office. She led me to a luxurious, private washroom connected directly to Cassian's suite. Waiting on a stand was a garment bag containing a new outfit and a discreet makeup kit. Mr. Sterling requires you to look like you belong at his side, Ms. Davies stated, her eyes utterly neutral. You need to shed the finance annex before you leave this room. I have adjusted the tailoring for the jacket. The outfit wasn't flashy, but breathtakingly sophisticated. A charcoal suit jacket and trousers cut from cashmere, a stark white silk shirt, and expensive leather shoes. As I changed, I realized everything felt different. The fabric was soft, the cut was precise, and the clothing smelled faintly of my new alpha's scent. A subtle, intoxicating layer beneath the potent mark he'd given me. When I stepped out, even Ms. Davies offered a near imperceptible nod of approval. I felt the physical transformation was complete, but the psychological hurdle remained. We took a private elevator straight down to the parking garage. Cassian was waiting beside a sleek, silent black car. He assessed my appearance, his eyes lingering on the way the suit draped over my Omega frame. "Adequate," he pronounced, opening the passenger door. "Remember the rules, Tel. You are devoted. You are mine." The drive was silent. I tried to mentally rehearse how a devoted Omega behaves, but all I could focus on was the pervasive, calming power of Cassian's silver musk. My own anxiety was completely suppressed, replaced by a strange, thrilling focus. The venue was an exclusive downtown high-rise hosting a reception for international investors. The moment we stepped out of the car, the flashes of paparazzi cameras went off. Cassian immediately rested his hand on the small of my back, a firm, possessive gesture that guided me toward the entrance. My Omega instantly registered the public claim, and I involuntarily leaned into his touch, my heart hammering. The interior was a sea of glittering wealth and sharp, competitive alpha energy. As we moved through the room, I realized that Cassian wasn't just introducing a date. He was displaying a prized asset. Every alpha we met scanned me instantly, and every time, they picked up Cassian's powerful scent mark. Their aggressive interest immediately cooled into respectful acknowledgement. "Cassian, you sly dog!" A grinning older alpha boomed, clapping him on the shoulder. "You kept this lovely Omega quiet. Who is the lucky boy?" Cassian tightened his grip on my waist, pulling me fractionally closer. "This is Tal Vesper," he introduced, his voice warm and possessive. A performance only a moment ago, but now unnervingly genuine sounding. "My partner." I instantly lowered my gaze, a blush rising on my neck, and squeezed Cassian's arm, performing the devoted Omega role exactly as he required. The lie felt like a physical pressure, yet the overwhelming approval of my alpha's scent made the acting terrifyingly easy. The real test came when we encountered a group of powerful alpha executives, some of whom were known to be Cassian's rivals. One alpha, a tall man with a predatory smirk named Mr. Dalton, looked at me with open skepticism, lingering on my face. "A devoted Omega, you say, Sterling?" Dalton drawled. "He seems a little jumpy for someone so deeply claimed. Where did you find him, Cassian?" "In accounting." The slight was subtle but brutal. Dalton was implying I was a disposable trophy bought cheaply. My anxiety spiked, momentarily fighting through the calming silver musk. I felt the urge to pull away and hide. Cassian felt my sudden tension. His alpha instinct flared instantly, overriding the professional facade. His hand moved from my waist up to the back of my neck, right over the scent mark. He applied a slight, firm pressure, a silent, dominant command, "Calm." His silver musk immediately spiked, sharp and potent, flooding the air around us. "Tal is precisely where he needs to be, Dalton," Cassian said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, low timbre. "He is discreet, utterly loyal, and committed only to me. Unlike some alphas who can't keep their business and personal lives separate, I have my partner's complete devotion. If you have a problem with my choices, I suggest you take it up with my board, not my partner." Cassian's public defense was fierce and protective. He pulled me closer, burying his nose for a quick, possessive inhale at my hairline. My breath hitched. The contact was purely for the show, but the intimacy, the protection he offered, made my heart skip a beat. My Omega instincts roared with fierce, protective loyalty to the alpha who had so publicly claimed me. I squeezed his arm tighter, my face radiating devotion. Dalton backed off immediately, clearly unwilling to challenge Cassian's territorial display. As we moved away, I felt my body trembling with the after-effects of the confrontation. "You performed admirably, Tal," Cassian murmured into my ear. "Your loyalty was evident. You didn't have to defend me so harshly," I whispered back, still reeling from the feeling of his alpha command. Cassian glanced down at me, his eyes oddly intense. "I don't tolerate public disrespect to anything that belongs to me, Tal, whether it's a car, a contract, or my partner. Remember that." He was still talking about property, but my heart, completely fooled by the potent scent mark and the aggressive defense, had completely forgotten the NDA. I was starting to feel genuine, fierce loyalty to the Alpha CEO. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of forced smiles, clinking glasses, and endless corporate small talk. My hand remained linked through Cassian's arm, his presence a constant, reassuring weight, his scent a powerful, enveloping haze that dulled the sharpness of my anxiety. Every time a new alpha approached with too much curiosity, Cassian would subtly tighten his grip or make a dismissive comment, his territorial sense spiking just enough to warn them off. I played my part perfectly, smiling when Cassian smiled, inclining my head in agreement, and meeting his gaze with carefully practiced adoration. The more I acted, the more real the devotion started to feel. My Omega was undeniably drawn to his Alpha's protective strength. As the evening wound down, the crowd thinned. Cassian was finishing a conversation with a foreign dignitary, his attention fully engaged. I stood patiently at his side, my head starting to ache from the constant performance. My body was still humming with the after-effects of Cassian's potent scent mark and his public defense. It was a potent combination, making me feel secure, cherished, and intensely bonded to the Alpha beside me. Then, Cassian concluded his conversation. He turned to me, his professional smile still in place, but his silver eyes held a hint of fatigue. He reached out, his hand gently finding my lower back. A casual, possessive gesture that had become routine throughout the evening. "Shall we go, Tal?" he murmured, his voice softer now that the audience was thinning. My Omega instincts, completely overwhelmed by the constant proximity and the protective scent, misread the signal. The gentle touch, the soft tone, the shared fatigue. It all screamed intimacy and relief after a long evening. Without thinking, driven by a sudden, overwhelming urge to show my gratitude and affection for his protection, I reached up. My hand found the back of his neck, right above his collar, and I gently pulled him down for a kiss. It was a soft, chaste brush of lips, meant as a silent, loving gesture of a devoted partner. Cassian froze. His body went utterly rigid beneath my touch. His silver musk scent, which had been so calming, spiked suddenly. Not with anger, but with pure, stark shock. My eyes flew open. I had acted entirely on instinct, on the intoxicating illusion of our performance, on the powerful alpha scent that had been soothing my Omega all night. His eyes, wide and bewildered, stared down at me. For the first time, Cassian Sterling looked genuinely surprised, his mask of icy control completely shattered. The realization of what I had done crashed over me with horrifying force. This wasn't an act. This wasn't a corporate reception. This was a direct, intimate gesture, completely unplanned and utterly out of place for our transactional agreement. I had crossed a line, a massive, gaping line. My hand dropped from his neck as if scalded. My face burned with shame. "Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry," I stammered, my voice barely audible. "I don't know why it was an accident. I was just—" Cassian cut me off, not with a command, but with a sharp intake of breath. He glanced quickly around the emptying room. No one seemed to have noticed. His private embarrassment was still, for now, private. He quickly regained his composure, his expression carefully neutral. But his hand, still on my lower back, felt tense and stiff. "Let's go," he stated, his voice clipped, devoid of the earlier softness. He didn't look at me, but stared straight ahead, guiding me toward the exit with a firm hand. The car ride back to his mansion was agonizingly silent. The comfortable bubble of his scent now felt heavy, suffocating. Every breath I took felt like a mistake. The beautiful performance of devotion I had maintained all evening had just been shattered by a single, accidental act of genuine feeling. I was no longer just his beard. I was a liability who couldn't control his Omega instincts. The drive back to the mansion was the longest, most suffocating silence of my life. I couldn't bring myself to look at Cassian, staring instead at the city lights streaking past the window, every nerve ending screaming. The silver musk felt suffocating, no longer a shield but a palpable awareness of the mistake I had made. When the car finally pulled up to his imposing, sleek mansion, Cassian didn't wait for the driver. He opened his own door and simply said, "Come inside." He led me not to his executive home office but to a quiet, dimly lit sitting room off the main foyer. It was intimate, with soft leather armchairs and a fireplace, making the moment feel less like a reprimand and more like a private, necessary conversation. I stood awkwardly in the center of the rug, twisting my hands. "Mr. Sterling, I am truly sorry," I blurted out, unable to hold the silence any longer. That was completely inappropriate. It was my Omega instincts reacting to the stress and your scent, sir. I let the performance confuse me. It won't happen again. I understand if you need to terminate the agreement now. I braced myself for the cold, severe professionalism that would confirm my firing. Cassian didn't speak immediately. He walked to the sideboard and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal tumbler. He didn't offer me one. He took a slow sip, his back to me, the broad line of his shoulders tense under his tailored shirt. "The agreement is not terminated," he said finally, his voice low and measured. He turned to face me, his silver eyes unreadable. "What you did was unprofessional. A breach of the behavioral terms we outlined." My heart plummeted. "I know. However," he continued, setting his glass down with a soft click, "I am not an unreasonable man. I understand that the intensity of the situation, combined with our biological natures, can create complications." He took a step toward me, and I had to fight the instinct to step back. His gaze was too penetrating. "You apologized for letting the performance confuse you," he stated. "But the performance must continue, Tal. The investors from tonight will be at the charity gala next week. The merger with Dalton's company is still pending. Your role is more critical than ever." He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that his scent washed over me anew, a dizzying wave of silver musk and cold resolve. "So, here is the new term," he said, his voice dropping, leaving no room for argument. "We will practice. We will drill this until your instincts and the performance are one and the same, until a gesture of devotion is as natural as breathing, until you don't have to think about it and therefore cannot make a mistake with it." "Practice," I whispered, my mouth going dry. "How?" Cassian's eyes dropped to my lips for a fraction of a second, so fast I thought I might have imagined it. "Starting now," he commanded. The kiss was a logical, if premature, escalation in our narrative. We are a newly public, deeply devoted couple. Such gestures are expected. The error was not the action itself but its spontaneity and your lack of control. He cupped my jaw, his thumb stroking my cheekbone. The touch was deliberate, practiced, sent a shiver straight down my spine. "Now," he murmured, his voice a low alpha rumble that vibrated in my chest. "We do it correctly. You will not initiate. You will respond. When I signal, you will yield. Do you understand?" I could only nod. My breath caught in my throat. This was a punishment and a lesson all in one. A ruthless, brilliant way to reassert his control and sand down my rough, emotional edges. "Good," he said, and then he leaned in, and this time the kiss was not a shocked, chaste brush of lips. It was a firm, possessive pressure, a deliberate act of ownership meant to stamp out the memory of my clumsy accident. It was every bit a performance, coldly executed for my benefit. But as his other hand settled on my waist, pulling me flush against him, and his scent enveloped me completely, my treacherous Omega heart didn't care about the reason. It only knew that its alpha was claiming it, and it sang with a devastating, foolish joy. When he pulled away, his expression was still perfectly controlled, but his breathing was slightly uneven. "See," he said, his voice a little rough around the edges. "Controlled. Precise. That is how it's done." He released me and took a step back, the distance between us feeling like a chasm. "Your room is the second door on the right. Be ready at 7 a.m. We begin your training as my assistant and my partner. Do not be late." He turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, my lips still tingling, my soul more confused than ever. The agreement was intact. My job was safe. So why did I feel like I had just made a deal with the devil, and my heart was the currency? The guest room was a masterpiece of minimalist luxury, but it felt like a gilded cage. I spent a night tangled in sheets that smelled faintly of him, my mind replaying the practiced kiss on a torturous loop. Controlled. Precise. The words were a brand. He had reduced the thing I'd done on a surge of genuine feeling to a technical flaw he needed to correct. At 6:59 a.m., I stood outside his home office, wearing one of the expensive new outfits a silent housekeeper had laid out for me. A crisp, pale blue button-down and tailored trousers. I felt like an imposter playing dress-up. Enter. His voice was just as commanding through the door. I took a deep breath and walked in. Cassian's home office was a larger, more personal version of the one at Sterling Corporation. He stood by the window, silhouetted by the morning sun, already dressed in a suit that looked like it had been woven from shadow and authority. He held a tablet in one hand and a steaming mug of black coffee in the other. "Your first lesson," he began without preamble, turning to face me. His silver eyes swept over me, assessing, and he gave a curt nod. "Adequate. A personal assistant is an extension of the executive. You must anticipate needs, maintain discretion, and project an image of seamless competence. You will start by learning my schedule." He handed me the tablet. It held his calendar, a complex web of colored blocks and reminders that stretched for months. "Memorize today's itinerary. You will be quizzed in 1 hour." It was a test. Power play. I was an accountant. I lived and breathed data. I simply nodded. "Yes, sir." The morning passed in a blur of corporate immersion. I learned his coffee order, his preferred brand of pen, a specific German model, and the exact order in which he liked his daily reports filed. He was a demanding, exacting taskmaster, his voice never rising, but his expectations were a wall I constantly had to scale. Just before lunch, he stood from his desk. "Now for your other role." My head shot up from the tablet. "The gala is in 5 days. We need to establish a believable physical lexicon. Proximity, touch, eye contact." He walked around the desk, his presence immediately shifting from CEO to Alpha Drill Sergeant. "Stand up." I obeyed, my heart starting a frantic rhythm. "When I offer my arm, you take it. Not tentatively. You place your hand here," he instructed, guiding my hand to the crook of his elbow. His forearm was solid muscle beneath the fine wool of his suit. "You maintain that contact. It signals possession and connection." He led me on a slow walk around the perimeter of the office. "Now eye contact. When I speak to you in a social setting, you look at me as if my words are the only thing that matters. Practice." He stopped walking and turned to face me. "Tell me. What did you think of the quarterly projections from the Asian sector?" I looked into his silver eyes, trying to project the devotion he demanded. I found them promising." His gaze was unervingly intense. "Your tone is uncertain. Your eyes flickered to the left. That suggests deception or distraction." Again. We repeated the exercise until my gaze remained steady, until my responses, though about corporate finance, were delivered with a soft, unwavering focus on him. "Better," he conceded. The word felt like a hard-won trophy. "Now the final element for today. The public kiss." My breath hitched. "It cannot be a surprise. It must be a natural culmination of our interaction. I will signal it." He stepped closer, his scent wrapping around me. "The signal is this. I will place my hand on the side of your neck, my thumb just below your ear. When you feel that, you will tilt your head up and yield. Is that clear?" It was a clinical dissection of intimacy. He should have felt cold. But the mere description of the act sent a wave of heat through me. "Yes, Cassian," I whispered, using his first name without thinking, caught in the gravity of his lesson. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. "Good." His hand came up, warm and sure, his thumb settling in the exact spot he'd described. My eyes fluttered shut on instinct, and I tilted my head up, my lips parting slightly. But the kiss didn't come. I opened my eyes to find him staring down at me, his gaze a turbulent storm of silver. His breath ghosted across my lips. We were frozen there in the charged space between the lesson and the act. He was testing me, testing my control, my submission. After a long, heart-stopping moment, he slowly lowered his hand, his fingers brushing against my jawline as he did so. The response was correct. he said, his voice slightly hushed. The anticipation is believable. He took a step back, breaking the spell. The professional mask was back, but it seemed strained. That's enough for today. I have a conference call. You are dismissed. I stood there for a moment, trembling, my entire being humming with unspent energy. I had passed his tests. I had memorized the data, learned the touches, and mastered the anticipation. But as I walked out of his office, I realized the most dangerous lesson of all. I was no longer just pretending to be devoted to Cassian Sterling. I was learning how to truly be devoted to him. And the line between the performance and my reality was crumbling faster than I could rebuild it. The next 2 days were a study in exquisite torture. By day, I was Tal Vesper, personal assistant. Efficient, discreet, and rapidly becoming an expert on the inner workings of Cassian Sterling's world. I scheduled his calls, filtered his emails, and learned the silent language of his moods. A slight tightening of his jaw meant a meeting was going poorly. A single, slow blink meant he was impressed, though he would never say it. By late afternoon, I became Tal Vesper, the partner in training. Our lessons continued with a relentless, quiet intensity. We practiced walking, talking, the subtle language of touch. He would guide me through his mansion with a hand on the small of my back, his touch burning through my clothes. We practiced conversations, my role to listen with rapt attention, his to speak as if I were his sole confidant. The practice kiss, however, was a line we hadn't crossed again since that first morning. The threat of it, the memory of his thumb on my neck, hung in the air between us. A constant, unspoken promise. It was on the third evening that the first crack appeared. We were in his private library, a room that felt more like him than any other. Dark wood, soft lighting, and the scent of old books mingling with his silver musk. I was reviewing the guest list for the gala, cross-referencing it with the corporate hierarchy he'd drilled into me. Aldrich Baxter, I said, reading a name aloud. He's the head of Baxter Industries, a rival. He's a shark who enjoys playing with his food. Cassian finished from the armchair opposite me. He wasn't looking at me, instead staring into the low fire crackling in the hearth, a glass of whiskey in his hand. It was the most relaxed I'd ever seen him. His tie loosened, the top button of his shirt undone. I nodded, making a note. I'll be sure to be particularly charming. A low sound, almost a grunt, came from him. Don't be too charming. He's the type to see it as an invitation. The possessiveness in his tone was subtle, but it wasn't part of our script. Felt real. I glanced up, surprised. He was watching me now, his expression unguarded in the flickering firelight. He looked tired. The weight of the corporation, the constant performance of being an unshakable alpha CEO. It was all there, etched in the faint shadows beneath his eyes. Does it ever get easier? The question slipped out before I could stop it, soft and impulsive. His silver eyes narrowed slightly. Does what get easier? The performance. Being on all the time. Having to calculate every word, every gesture. I gestured vaguely between us. All of this. Cassian was silent for a long moment, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. No, he said finally, his voice quiet and stripped of its usual command. It doesn't get easier. You just get better at hiding the effort. He took a slow drink. My father built this company from nothing. He taught me that emotion was a liability, that trust was a flaw in your armor. An alpha's strength is in his control. His gaze met mine, and for the first time I didn't see a CEO or a strategic alpha. I saw a man forged in a crucible of cold expectation. This, what we're doing. It's the kind of messy, emotional variable he would have told me to eliminate immediately. My heart ached for him. The confession was more intimate than any practice kiss could ever be. And what do you think? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, and the air in the room grew thick, charged with something new and terrifying. It wasn't a lesson. It wasn't a strategy. I think, he said at last, his voice low and rough, that some variables are more compelling than others. The admission hung between us, fragile and profound. In that moment, the NDA, the contract, the entire transactional foundation of our relationship seemed to dissolve. He wasn't looking at his beard, his employee, or a liability. He was looking at me. The spell broke when his phone buzzed sharply on the side table. He glanced at it, and the CEO mask snapped back into place, the vulnerability vanishing like it had never existed. "I have to take this," he said, his voice all business again as he stood. "Review the seating chart for the gala. I want no surprises." He left the room, and I was left alone with the echo of his words and the soft roar of the fire. Some variables are more compelling than others. He had seen a crack in my control with a mistaken kiss. Now I had seen a crack in his, and as I sat there in the quiet library, surrounded by the scent of him, I understood with terrifying clarity that nothing between us was the same anymore. The game had changed. We were no longer just playing with fire. We were both beginning to burn. The morning of the gala dawned with a sense of impending destiny. The air in the mansion was thick with unspoken words and the ghost of Cassian's vulnerability in the library. He was back to being the impenetrable CEO, but the memory of his confession was a live wire between us, charging every glance, every brush of hands as we went over the final preparations. Ms. Davies arrived with a team of stylists. I was poked, prodded, and draped in a tuxedo of such exquisite, understated elegance it could only have been chosen by Cassian. When I finally looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the Omega staring back. He looked polished, confident, and owned. The perfect accessory for a powerful alpha. Cassian entered the room as the stylists finished. He was a vision in black tie, his broad shoulders cutting a severe, commanding silhouette. His silver eyes swept over me, and for a moment, the professional appraisal in his gaze faltered, replaced by something hotter, something possessive and deep. "You look," he began, his voice unusually thick. He cleared his throat, the mask slipping back into place. "Adequate. You will do perfectly." The backhanded compliment shouldn't have stung, but it did. After the library, I craved more. I craved the man who had found me compelling. The gala was a sea of glittering jewels, powerful alphas, and the cloying mix of expensive perfumes. But tonight was different. The practice touches felt less like an act. When Cassian's hand found the small of my back, it felt like a claim. When I looked at him with feigned devotion, the line between fiction and my own treacherous heart blurred into nothingness. We were a perfect, seamless unit. He would murmur a name, and I would smile and offer a relevant, charming comment. We moved through the crowd like dancers in a well-rehearsed ballet, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of genuine power. I was by his side, and it felt right. Then I saw her, a stunning, confident Omega with a cascade of dark hair and a smile that promised everything. She moved through the crowd with an innate sense of belonging, and she was heading straight for us. "Cassian, darling," she purred, air-kissing his cheeks. "You've been hiding this one." Her eyes, the color of dark honey, scanned me with a knowing, dismissive look. "I'm Isabella Vance, an old friend of the family." Cassian's posture went rigid. "Isabella, I wasn't aware you were back in the country. I couldn't miss the event of the season," she said, her gaze sliding back to me, sharp and assessing. "And to see the man my father always intended for me finally settle for, well." She gave a light, tinkling laugh that held no warmth. "Let's just say the rumors are quite creative, Cassian. A sudden, secret Omega from the accounting department? It's a charming story. Almost believable. The world tilted. The man my father always intended for me. This wasn't just a social complication. This was the reason. The real reason he needed a beard. To ward off an arranged mating with a woman from a powerful family." Cassian's hand tightened on my back, a silent command to stay calm. "The only thing you need to believe, Isabella, is that Tal is with me. End of story." "Is it?" she challenged softly, stepping closer. "Or is this just another one of your cold, calculated business moves, Cassian? A temporary solution to a permanent problem? I know how you operate. You think you can control everything, even love." Her words were a scalpel, expertly dissecting the very foundation of our relationship. I felt the color drain from my face. The NDA, the contract, the training. It all came crashing down around me, exposed and laid bare by this woman. I was a business move, a temporary solution. "If you'll excuse us," Cassian said, his voice like ice, trying to steer me away, but the damage was done. Isabella's final, pitying smile was aimed directly at me. "Good luck, darling. You'll need it when he's done with you." The rest of the gala was a blur of muted sounds and stifling air. I performed my part by rote. Cassian could feel the change in me, the cold stillness that replaced my earlier warmth. He tried to engage me, his touches growing more insistent, his whispers more urgent, but I was locked away inside myself. We didn't speak on the drive back to the mansion. The silence was a physical weight, crushing and absolute. Once inside the grand foyer, he finally turned to me, his expression strained. "Tal, what Isabella said. Was it true?" I interrupted, my voice quiet and horribly steady. "Am I just a temporary solution? A business move to get a rival alpha's daughter off your back?" He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a rare sign of agitation. "It's more complicated than that. The NDA, Cassian," I cried, the dam finally breaking. "The contract, the training. It was all to make me a convincing enough shield so you could avoid a mating you didn't want without a political scandal. I wasn't just saving my job, was I? I was helping you sabotage an alliance." His silence was all the confirmation I needed. The black moment crashed over me, cold and final. "You told me emotion was a liability?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "You were right. My liability was falling in love with you. And yours was letting me believe, even for a second, that I was anything more than a variable in your equation." I stepped back, avoiding his reaching hand. "The agreement is terminated. Quit. As your assistant, and as your partner." I turned and walked away, heading for the stairs, toward the gilded cage of the guest room one last time. The scent of his silver musk, once my comfort, now felt like poison in my lungs. I had given him my devotion, and he had given me a contract. It was over. I didn't pack. There was nothing in that room that was truly mine. The clothes, the shoes, they were all costumes for a part one was no longer playing. I just needed to get out, to breathe air that wasn't saturated with the scent of my own heartbreak. The sound of my hurried footsteps on the marble floor echoed through the cavernous foyer. I could feel Cassian's gaze burning into my back, but I didn't turn around. The silence from him was worse than any argument. It was an admission. "Tal." His voice was raw, stripped of all its polished authority. It was just a voice. A man's voice. I froze at the door, my hand on the cold, brass handle, but I didn't turn. "Everything Isabella said was true," he said, the words rushing out as if he feared I would vanish before he could say them. "The arrangement with her family was my father's dying wish. A merger of empires. I have spent my entire adult life fighting it, looking for a way out that wouldn't cause a corporate war. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the final blow. When you sent that letter," he continued, his voice closer now. He had moved toward me. "It was insane, unprofessional, a liability, but it was also the most real, unfiltered thing to ever land on my desk. In a world of calculated moves, you were a glorious, chaotic accident." A sob caught in my throat. I still didn't turn. The contract, the NDA, it was to protect myself. Not from you, but from the hope you represented. The hope that something real could exist for me. I was trying to control it, to manage it, because my father was right. Emotion is a liability. It makes you vulnerable. And I have never been vulnerable a day in my life. Until you. I heard him take a final step, stopping just behind me. His warmth radiated against my back. His scent, that beautiful, heartbreaking silver musk, wrapped around me one last time. That night in the library, that wasn't part of the training. That was me, the man behind the CEO. And you were the only person I have ever shown him to. His hand came up, hovering just beside my arm, not quite touching. "You asked me what I thought. I think I was a coward. I think I found the most compelling variable of my life and I tried to solve for it instead of just loving it." The word hung in the air between us. Loving. "I am terminating the NDA," he said, his voice firm now, laced with a new kind of strength. Right here, right now. You are free. You can walk out that door and you will never hear from me again. Your job in the annex will be waiting for you, with a promotion and a significant raise, no strings attached. My breath hitched. This was it. My freedom. The clean break I thought I wanted. But before you go, he whispered, the sound a plea. I need you to know something. The kiss wasn't a mistake. My reaction was, I wasn't shocked that you kissed me. I was shocked by how right it felt. I was shocked that after a lifetime of control, all I wanted was to lose it with you. He finally touched me, his hand gently turning me to face him. His eyes were silver pools of raw, unguarded emotion. The mask was gone, completely shattered. This was Cassian Sterling, laid bare. I don't want a beard, Tal. I don't want a partner for a business deal. I want you, not because of a contract, but in spite of one. I love you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single, folded piece of paper. My letter. The original do not open rant.docs. And this, he said, his thumb stroking the crumpled page. This isn't a liability. It's the best business proposal I've ever received. He tore the letter in half, then again, letting the pieces flutter to the floor between us. The deal is over, he said, his gaze holding mine, pouring every ounce of his alpha sincerity into me. But my offer stands. Not for a job, not for a role, but for a life. With me. He didn't command. He didn't demand. He simply waited, his heart in his eyes, offering me everything. I looked at the torn pieces of my foolish, heartfelt letter on the floor. I looked at the man who had built walls around himself so high, he'd lived in a fortress of his own making. And I saw that he had torn them all down, for me. The tears came again, but this time, they were warm, cleansing. My Omega instincts weren't screaming in panic or confusion. They were quiet. They were home. I didn't say a word. I simply stepped over the torn contract, closed the distance between us, and reached for him. My hand cupped the back of his neck, and I pulled him down to me. This kiss was nothing like the others. It wasn't a mistake or a practice drill or a performance. It was an answer. It was a promise. It was soft and deep and real. A silent conversation of all the words we had been too afraid to say. His arms wrapped around me, crushing me to his chest, and he kissed me back with a desperate, grateful fervor, as if I were the air he'd been starving for. When we finally broke apart, breathless and trembling, I rested my forehead against his. The finance annex sounds terribly boring, I whispered, a true, genuine smile finally touching my lips. I think I'll apply for the permanent position right here. A real, breathtaking smile broke across Cassian's face. The first one I had ever seen that reached his eyes. It transformed him from a CEO into the man of my dreams. Welcome home, Tal, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion as he sealed his promise with another soft, lingering kiss. The kind that starts a forever,